One of the scariest parts about living in Canada is they can shut down your bank account whenever they want. Last year, I had one account with 6 figures in it, and they shut down the account on suspicion, and they kept that account shut for 6 months.
You know, the word dystopian gets thrown around a lot when we discuss Canada, but really it does feel pretty dystopian, especially since the pandemic and moving on from the pandemic. Even now in 2025, it is pretty scary what the government is able to do, but not even just what the government is able to do, just what's going on in general with the country right now. We're going to discuss it in today's video and react to a bunch of videos as well on TikTok. With that being said, let's dive straight into today's video subject.
One of the scariest parts about living in Canada is they can shut down your bank account whenever they want. Last year, I had one account with 6 figures in it, and they shut down the account on suspicion, and they kept that account shut for 6 months. Now, this was just one of my business accounts, so I didn't really care too much. However, it still had 6 figures in it that I wanted back, and they opened it up after 6 months, and they said, by the way, our mistake, nothing's wrong, you can proceed. But imagine that was my only account. I'd have no income, no bank account, and no savings. For 6 months, I'd basically have nothing. Like, that is such a scary thought, but that's just the reality of living here.
And it's funny, that's just suspicion that the bank thinks something might be going on and they're acting on their own terms, which still, the fact that they have that power is a little bit alarming because the government's not necessarily asking them to do that, but the government can ask them to do that. And governments have approached banks before in Canada, especially during the pandemic. The government actually got a lot of these banks to freeze people's bank accounts who donated to the Freedom Convoy, right? So that was a thing that happened before, and that was more political. This is not even necessarily political. This is the fact that the banks have that much power to just shut your account down or freeze it for a bit on just suspicion alone. That is a little bit alarming, but it doesn't surprise me in Canada because we've seen it before during the pandemic.
Orwell's Animal Farm isn't just a fable about pigs in power, it's a warning. A warning about revolutions that promise progress but deliver new forms of tyranny. And if you look closely at Canada today, the parallels are chilling. In Animal Farm, the pigs lead a rebellion promising equality. At first, it's all unity and shared sacrifice, but soon, the pigs rewrite the rules, hoard the resources, and rule through fear. Sound familiar?
Back! Don't push back!
In Canada, the ruling pigs aren't fictional. They're the Liberal Party. They came to power on promises of sunny ways and social justice.
Sunny ways, my friends, sunny ways.
But over time, they centralized control, punished dissent, and rewrote the rules to suit their interests. Justin Trudeau may play the part of Napoleon, the smiling face of soft authoritarianism, but don't be fooled. Replacing him with another pig in a different suit like Mark Carney doesn't change the system. The barn remains under the same regime.
It is pretty scary that any political party has the ability to change things so drastically, especially if you just have another party collude with you as well, giving you a majority government. We've seen that happen a lot during, the last few years, and it feels like it was a bit of a shock to see that as a whole, Canada didn't vote in another direction. We kind of stuck to the same party that's been at the helm for a while, and a party that, it doesn't matter what party you actually vote for. You have to admit, the country has definitely been going downhill over the last 10 plus years. But again, it feels like we're doing it all over again. And that might be one of the reasons why, we discuss a lot on this channel, why people are leaving Canada. And that could be one of the main reasons, not just economic, sometimes it is political.
Canada's youth unemployment rate is 14.8%. It is significantly higher than it's ever been over the last 15 years. And here is the simple reality. I have a very easy question. How many of those young people are actively going out, doing charity events, getting involved in their community, volunteering? Very few of them are doing it. A lot of the generation wants to become an influencer. It's higher than ever that people, I want to be this influencer when they have nothing to give. Go out, be active in your community, get involved. Most importantly, stop listening to this outdated educational system that is putting you into an environment where AI is going to take your job. We still need the trades more than ever. We still need hardworking people. We still need people to help other people. That's the simple math, guys. So if you're young, you're Generation Z, and you're looking for a job, go volunteer for free. Watch how fast you get a job, guaranteed.
I have to say, I definitely disagree with what he's saying. I don't necessarily think that volunteering is a bad thing. I think it is good, but you see how expensive it is to live in today's world, and to just give yourself up for free for that long. Unless you're living at home and your parents already have a lot of money, then maybe you can actually do that for a few months. But a lot of young people don't have those options. A lot of young people in Toronto and, you know, other big cities grow up in places where their parents rent, right? They don't have a home of their own with a mortgage paid off or anything like that. They have massive accumulating bills, and they have to sometimes help out around the house and with the family with finances, you know, and if they don't have a paycheck, how are they going to do that? So, I mean, while I do agree with some of his sentiment there, I just don't think that that is the case anymore. You know, things have been getting so expensive in Canada now with inflation and everything else. I don't think that just a simple solution like volunteering for free is going to fix everything. You know, it might give you some work experience, but maybe that's not even enough. You know, look at the amount of experience entry-level jobs now are asking for in Canada. Not even just Canada, even in the States.
Now this is freedom. When you pay rent to the government on the house that you already own. We live in a government tax farm. You got income tax, you got property tax, you got fucking sales tax, you got capital gains tax, you got, what else we got? Inheritance tax. Every angle you turn, they've got their hand in your pocket. Different names, but it's the same fucking scam. You get fined for earning a living. You get punished for buying something. You get squeezed for investing into your family's future. And your kids get robbed the moment that you're gone. I mean, think about it. Why should you have to keep paying just to live in a house that you already own? I mean, why should you have to hand over money just for the privilege of buying something that you already worked for? And why should your family get gutted when you try to pass on what you built? Here's what most people don't even realize. When income tax was first introduced, it wasn't permanent, okay? It was temporary, and it was 3%. And now they're taking nearly 40% of what you make before you even see the fucking check.
Yeah, and it depends on what your income tax bracket is, obviously. But yes, in some cases, it can be 40% of your income that goes to the government. And you don't even have to make that much, depending on which province you live in. Now, one of the things he mentioned is very true, that income tax was actually implemented first to be like a temporary measure. And a lot of people don't know this. I always tell people this because they find it fascinating, because they just think it's so just normal that like we pay a percentage of our income to the government, but that wasn't the way it used to be. It just wasn't the way for pretty much all of humanity's and civilization's existence. That's just not the way it was. They might have had tariffs and other implementations for taxes for the people of the country, but income tax wasn't one of them. Now check this out. In some countries such as Canada and the United Kingdom, income tax was initially introduced as a temporary measure to fund wars. It was not intended to be a permanent tax, but governments later retained it as a major source of revenue, thus expanding the government and helping the government grow, and then obviously funding a lot more public jobs, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, more jobs is good, but you'd have to ask yourself, if you don't have all those jobs in the public sector, can't the private sector do a good enough job with that as well? The private sector definitely hires a lot of people, so it's not just on the government to hire. But again, those income taxes fund the government, ultimately leading to the government getting bigger and bigger, needing more tax and more tax to survive. A temporary wartime measure, Canadians' federal income tax was created in 1917 through the Income Tax War Act, introduced by Finance Minister Sir Thomas White. It was meant to be a temporary measure to cover the immense costs of World War I, which far outstripped the Canadians' traditional revenue sources like customs and excess duties. And again, customs and duties and tariffs, these are the ways that most countries would actually get tax revenue. They would never turn it in on their citizens, but after World War I, it was implemented as a temporary measure and just stayed for basically the entire country's forward-moving years. And we're still paying it today. Leave your thoughts down below about this video's subject, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.